Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're diving into what is maybe one of the most dramatic what-if scenarios in the whole Bible, and it's right here in Psalm 124. It's this incredible song about a rescue that almost didn't happen. In this devotional, brought to you by our team at You Need Faith in Jesus, we're going to unpack this amazing story of divine defense. So let's get into it. Not really, just pause for a second and think about that. Where would you actually be? This is the very heart of the psalm we're looking at. It forces us to look at this terrifying alternative to the reality we have in God's presence. So here's how we're going to walk through this together. We'll start with that chilling what-if question. Then we'll look at what it feels like to be totally overwhelmed. After that, we get to celebrate the great escape. And finally, we'll anchor ourselves in the truth of who our helper really is. And I'll give you some practical steps to put that trust into action. Okay, so let's start right where David, the writer, starts. He begins with this really powerful exercise of looking back and just imagining the absolute worst-case scenario. The psalm just explodes right out of the gate with this repetition. If it had not been the Lord who is on our side. Did you catch that? He says it twice, back to back. And there's a reason for that. He's trying to get Israel to just stop and really, truly grasp this one fundamental truth. Their survival, their very existence, was completely 100% dependent on God being for them. Now, this is so cool. Check out the contrast here. On one side, you have David looking back at this terrifying what if, what could have gone so wrong. Then, centuries later, the Apostle Paul takes that exact same idea and flips it into this glorious, confident declaration of what is. It's the difference between looking back at a car crash you just missed and looking forward, knowing you've got the best driver in the universe. Okay, so after establishing that God was on their side, David goes on to paint this really graphic picture of what would have happened if he wasn't. He uses some intense imagery to describe the destruction they just barely escaped. Swallowed us up quick. You know, in the original Hebrew, this phrase means to be devoured alive. This wasn't some slow, drawn-out defeat. He's talking about a sudden, violent, complete annihilation. The enemy's anger, their wrath, was like this burning fire aimed at just wiping them off the map. And this image of being devoured, it's not just some ancient threat. The New Testament picks up this exact same language. In Peter 5:8, we're warned that our spiritual adversary, the devil, walketh about as a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. The threat of being spiritually swallowed up is absolutely real for us today. Then David switches metaphors. He goes from a hungry beast to a raging flood. But notice, this isn't just any water. These are proud waters, like a flood with an arrogant attitude, an unstoppable force. See the progression? First, it overwhelms them, then it goes over their very soul. He's describing a total, life-ending disaster. And honestly, haven't we all felt that? The pressure from work, the financial stress, maybe a health issue. It can feel exactly like that, like a flood that's just rising higher and higher, threatening to pull us right under. David's ancient words perfectly capture that modern feeling of being completely swamped. And then you get these two words, possibly the two most powerful words in the entire Bible. After painting this picture of absolute horror, of total helplessness, everything changes. And right here, the whole tone of the psalm just pivots on a dime. We move from the horror of what if to the absolute joy of what is. The very first response to being delivered, it's praise. And it's so specific. He doesn't just say, thanks God. He says, blessed be the Lord, who didn't let us get eaten. He's praising God for a personal, active rescue from the very jaws of destruction. And that's a huge point for us. Our praise should be just as specific for the dangers he's brought us through. David keeps going with this amazing imagery. Our soul is escaped as a bird out of the snare of the fowlers. Just picture it, a little bird completely helpless, caught in a trapper's net. The more it struggles, the more tangled it gets. There's no way out. But then, an outside force steps in, breaks the snare, and the bird is free. And that, my friends, is the gospel in a nutshell. We were all caught in the snare of sin, totally unable to free ourselves. But then our rescuer, Jesus Christ, reached in on the cross, and he broke the power of that snare, setting us free. Our escape was only possible because he intervened. So all of this leads us to the grand finale of the psalm. This is the ultimate declaration of faith that's underneath every victory and every single escape. This is it. This is the bottom line. Why weren't they swallowed? Why didn't the flood win? Why was the snare broken? Because their help wasn't in their army, or their economy, or their own cleverness. Their help is in the name of the Lord. And, the name is so much more than just a title. In that culture, a name represented everything about a person, their character, their authority, all their power, the whole shebang. So to trust in his name is to trust in everything he is. And just in case we doubt that power for a second, David adds the ultimate resume line. This is the God who made heaven and earth. The one who created everything from nothing is more than able to handle whatever you're facing. Okay, so this is an incredible, powerful song from thousands of years ago. But what do we do with it? How does this change our Monday morning? Let's break it down into 4 simple, practical steps. All right, first step, reflect. Just like David did, consciously think about where you would be without God's help in your life. Second, identify. What are the floods or snares you're facing right now? Give them a name. Put them out in the open. Third, praise. Again, follow David's lead. Thank God specifically for times in the past when he rescued you. Remind yourself that he's done it before. And finally, step 4, declare. Don't just think it. Say it out loud. Proclaim, my help is in the name of the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. So as we wrap this up, I'll leave you with this final thought. Based on the unshakable truth of this psalm, what specific trap, what fear, what overwhelming problem are you going to actively trust the all-powerful name of the Creator God to break for you this week?